Hello, Jamie from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today a little bit of coloring, color blending using that chart or that PDF that I made. So if you're watching this one in order, this should be number 3. I maybe forgot some things. I haven't actually gone in and edited number 2 yet, so there might be another one to come after this that explains a few other things. I think I needed to do color swatching yet, so that will be coming up. But I have a card class coming up, and so I had to do some color swatching, figuring out my colors for my cards. Granted, I already have my originals made, but I didn't write down any of my colors for it, so it's new year, same me. It is what it is. So for this one, I went through and I kind of just grabbed from my markers. It's how I work. It's how I create. I don't sit there and pull out just this set or just that set. I just kind of grab. I'm also trying to revamp the studio to get my markers actually right in front of me. And so it's been a process. It's going to be a process. So at the filming of this, I don't have all of my ducks in a row. They're kind of at a rave, and they're kind of like shiny squirrels. Anyways, so to do this one, I kind of just grabbed and went from there. I did do a lot of my old Ohuhus, the Oahu ones, just because they're currently right at my fingertips and easy for me to grab. And that's just kind of how I work. And I really do want to use up the older before the newer. Plus, for class, I like to use my older ones and not my new ones. So that kind of plays into how I grab my markers. And that being said, so when I grabbed them, I did this one first. And I'm not gonna lie, I started coloring it and I hated it. I had bought some new marker paper to try a cheaper alternative than Express It cardstock. I ended up finding, when I was cleaning, I ended up finding some Basil Basics, I think it is what it was, but it's kind of like a super smooth. It's what I originally started on when I bought Copics way back when Archivers was still a brick and mortar store. Are they even around? Anyways, when they were still a brick and mortar store and did scrap events in that respect. So by doing that, I just kind of grabbed those colors. When I was all done coloring, I went back and actually made my chart, because it's not always the easiest thing to do as I'm going. As you can see, all of my little scribbles on there, and it's not always the clearest to read. So I was trying to get it into a usable picture format that I can snap a picture of, print it, and hand it to my students at class for them to use and kind of go as a guide. And that's why I do it this way, so they can kind of see where I lay down the shadows, the darkest colors, then the medium tone, and then the lightest tone. That's how I color. If you don't color that way, start with your lightest tone and then go backwards. So start with your lighter tone and then go in and add your medium tones and then your dark tones. Keep in mind that when you go from dark to medium, you want to go over your dark with your medium tone to blend it. You don't have to go over the whole thing, but make sure you're getting a good enough edge in there that you're going to blend it. It's going to blend better and look a little bit better, if that makes sense. I did the darkest one. I didn't like it, so I had to revamp and go back over. I also don't have plans for this little guy on my actual cards, but I like to give my students options and image choices. So that way they get 3 images. They only need 2 for the card that we're making, and they have everything laid out for them. So because I didn't like this one being so dark, I ended up recoloring him in some gray greens. I need to remember to use all of my greens. So I used gray greens, neutral grays for this one, which I wasn't too on, but I will use that one today in our coloring because it'll work for the other image in this set. And then I used some blue grays and some yellow grays. So if you don't have the Oahu markers and you're missing those yellow grays, go to a warm gray. So that's what I did. I subbed them out for some warm grays. I kind of found them that were in the same tonal. I don't know if tonal is the right word. In the same, is it tone? Value? Same value. That's what it's called. As I pull out my color chart and it says right on there, value. So kind of in that same color value. So they were the same darkness and the other. So it's going to be a little bit different if you have the warm grays in there, but I'm going to enjoy coloring with multiple shades of gray, and I'm going to remember to do those things. So I will have this one up on my blog in those color families if that's what you are interested in. If that's why you're here, definitely go check that out. It will be there. I also just got done with my Ohuhu markers, like the full list, even if they don't have another one. So let me zoom this in here for you. I don't know if it's going to pick up all of the things. There we go. So it's super small. I wanted everything on the front page. I tried really hard. There's about 75 different colors of gray in both of the sets, and so I can't fit them on this page. I will definitely be doing a separate one. So I have a colors page and then a gray page, and this can be in the front of my book so I can just reference it quickly. The other thing is, once I get this done, I know I shouldn't be showing you it yet, but once I get it done, I can go in and say, okay, I want to see if that one's going to go with that one. It's big enough, and that's really all I need. I need it to be big enough that I can go in and play with it a little bit. It's kind of on the same line, but to fit, I think there's 404. I don't know if I counted right, but I think there's about 404 individual marker colors. And so that was kind of how I did it. So anything that matched, I matched. Anything that didn't match in one but matched in the other. So to differentiate between Honolulu and Oahu, there are some colors that are the exact same numbers in the different groups that are not the same color. And so to make sure that I could figure out when I was doing it how I knew it was an Ohuhu color or a Honolulu, the Ohuhu one ended up with a lowercase letter. So Y030 is the Honolulu one, and then a little y, 196, is going to be the Oahu one. I did not include the old markers just because I have the other sheet there, and so I'm not really worried about cross-referencing because it's pretty easy once you have the name or the number to go in, and it's definitely way easier to find it on the other one with the name. It's easier to find it with the number on this one, which is kind of a nice change of pace. I don't know. So it is numerical order on the Honolulu part, and then where there wasn't a Honolulu one, I put it in numerical order for the Oahu one that went there. So not all the Oahu ones are going to be in number order, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. I might also have a list of all of them in order because, you know, I had to figure it out at some point in time, right? So our colors today. We're going to color this little guy. I haven't colored him yet. I'm thinking we can go neutral grays for his little disc there. I'm just going to pull out some of my neutral grays here. And what shades of blue? I think I want to do blue gray on him. Maybe I'll do green gray. I kind of like the green grays. They're kind of pretty. Green gray 5. Where's 3 and 1? So, and then of course we can do a color in that center part there. So for me to start, I'm going to start with my little critter. Because if I don't like the critter, I can chuck it and go from there. I also normally don't cut mine out prior to, but for class I cut them out, and so I had extra room on my class sheets, and so I stamped a few extras. It's kind of how it rolls. So I'm going to go in with green gray number 5, which is my darkest tone, and kind of lay in my shadows. I know he's going to have shadows underneath his ears, kind of in the corner, picking and choosing where I have the shadows. I want his hair to have a little bit of contrast there, and then of course I feel there's going to be a shadow where that record is going to be held up in front of his face, and then of course I usually go for the underside of the feet to have the darker shadow. We'll do underside of the tail there. I'm not sure. He kind of looks like a puppy, but I'm not really sure. He kind of looks like an axolotl too, to be honest. Let's see. We have the shadow going here. I'm going to do a little bit of shadow underneath his chin. And the underside, or the bottom of his chin. And I can always lighten it up as I go here. As I undid both ends, which is weird for me, but okay. GG3. So it's green gray 3. Across the board, the green grays actually match with the old Oahu and the Honolulu ones, which is kind of interesting, but it is what it is. And then I'm just going to go in with kind of a little heavier hand, but I also go over that darker tone to blend it in. Now, if I feel like I blended it out too much when I'm all done with my image, I can go back in with those darker tones and kind of darken them up again. And because your paper is wet, you should be able to, you know, go in it with it once. The other thing is, if you're having a difficult time blending some colors, don't be afraid to go over the whole image a second time with all of your markers. It will definitely give you a higher saturation and probably a better blend. It's just kind of, they're a translucent marker, and so it's gonna layer over the top. That's just kind of how it goes. Now I'm coming in with my lightest tone, which is G1, and I'm just gonna add in my highlights. I tend to go over my whole image. Well, the better part, I shouldn't say the whole image. I tend to go over most of the image with my lightest tone marker. Sometimes I think it's too dark and I want it to lighten up. Other times it's just because I want that blend to be a little bit smoother, and by going over it again, it's gonna give me, it's gonna kind of blend all those colors out and in a little bit better, I think. I'm not an expert. This is just, you know, self-taught how I kind of, you know, taught myself to do it. Can I say I'm a lazy colorer when it comes to coloring? It's not my favorite. I shouldn't say it's not my favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do is to create the actual card, like the finished project. And so for me, the coloring is one step of the process. Granted, now if I get into adult coloring, like coloring book stuff, I could probably enjoy it a little bit more. But the biggest thing with coloring is practice. I've been doing it for, I've been doing alcohol marker coloring for about 18-ish years. I think my youngest was a baby. Maybe he was 2-ish. So 16 years for sure. And so I'm happy with the blend on him. I probably was off camera. Shoot. So I'm happy with his blend, and you know, it turned out good to me. I'm gonna come in and add just a little bit of a cheek. This is a take it or leave it. Sometimes I like to add them, sometimes it's not my thing. You can also go in, if that one's ear's not showing, so I'm not gonna put any rosy cheek or rosy skin color in his ear, because it just, you know, doesn't make sense to me. So I am done with my green grays. I'm going to set those aside, and I'm going to bring in those neutral grays. Of course, I'm using the old Ohuhu line, so definitely for color reference, if you're looking at any of the other ones, go that route. So the record player kind of gives you your highlights, right? Or at least in this image it does, because it kind of gives you those darker ones, and then it's going to give you where the shine is going to be. So I'm going to kind of go with that. Turning my image, I turn my image a lot just because it makes coloring a lot easier to me. I'm kind of going with the, if you see how it goes, I don't know, wheels and records are probably fairly similar, so I'm going to color it like I color my wheels. Kind of going with, I don't know, I want to say a triangle, but it's not a full triangle, of course, because you have your record on the inside there. I think that's good enough for the dark gray. Now, I might go over these ones, just do a little bit of hashing, just to kind of show the little lines that might be on that record that you might see. And then I'm going to come in with my darker tone. This one is NG5. Now the neutral grays, there aren't as many neutral grays in the Honolulu set as there are in the Oahu set, which made it a little bit more difficult to find some matches. I kind of had to go back to my original sheet and like switch my colors up just a little bit to get a big enough jump, but not too big of a jump in between them, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna come in with, oops, I could color it with that end, it would be faster. I don't know how much of a highlight I want here, but I'm gonna come in and kind of just do that, because it's not gonna be a perfect line, a straight line. Does that make sense? I don't want it to be a straight line and or a perfect line. And then I'm going to come in with my lightest tone and kind of add that to that blend. I think I'm pretty happy with it. It's a record. It kind of looks like a record. It has some, it looks like it has maybe a gloss to it or a shine to it, and it looks good to me. So for that center, I'm going to add a little bit of color. Excuse me. To me, that center is going to have a little bit of color, at least in my mind. There's, you know, a label on it. So I kind of have pinks and purples pulled out here. So I'm going to use Rose Pink, which is RV 390 in the original or the newer version of the Oahu markers. I think I'm gonna go this way. Let's see. I thought about lining it up with my other one, and I don't know. Sometimes yay, sometimes nay. I don't know. Coloring should just be, I don't know. It shouldn't be overthought. I think it's something that should just make you happy. We don't have enough of those things in life. Okay, so I let it dry, and I'm just gonna go back in with the exact same color, and then I go all the way around and over it all once. That way, it's hard to see right now, but that way it'll be darker where it went over a second time and lighter where I only went over one time. It's kind of a cheater to get a two-tone look with one marker. And so I'm going to do the same thing with my blue here. And then once it dries, it'll dry back a little bit and you'll be able to see that a little bit better. And so there's my little image. Of course, that sheet will be on my blog. So if you are interested in the actual colors that I used, they're always going to be. So I just ended up using these grays here with an added, the added lighter gray, which is, was it NG3? No, NG2. So the lightest gray, or one of the lighter grays, just to add in a lighter tone for it. But I could have done two grays and it would have been totally fine. I just had the third one out, so I grabbed it. But 2 to 3 is usually good enough. You can definitely get enough color variation with the two. And on little objects, one marker a lot of times will work. Sometimes we need to not overthink things as much as we do. I'm pointing at myself, kids. And, you know, that's just how it is. So anyways, I hope that was semi-informative for you, and I'm sure I'm going to end up re-recording it because I was probably off camera for a bunch of it. Anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day and keep getting inky. Hit me with your comments, questions. I love to, you know, if you have questions, I will try to answer anything I can. I'm just winging it like everybody else in this world. All right, bye.